Going from the roar of a Grand Slam crowd to the quiet, intense halls of Parliament, well, that's a path almost nobody walks. Today, we're going to dive into the two lives of Sam Groth. He's the guy who literally traded a tennis racket for a seat at the political table. And his story? It really makes you think about the true cost of living your life in the spotlight. Okay, let's start with a number. 263 kilometers per hour. And no, that's not a speeding ticket, though it might as well be. That's the fastest tennis serve ever officially recorded. I mean, just think about that for a second. It's a blistering, almost unbelievable speed that put one guy's name right into the history books.
And here he is. This is the man who did it. Back in 2012, Australian player Sam Groth just unleashed this absolute rocket, 263 kilometers per hour during a tournament in Busan. And just like that, boom, he made tennis history.
Now, for most athletes, right, a world record like that, that's it. That's the peak. That's the story everyone tells. But for Sam Groth, believe it or not, that was just the beginning. It was just the prologue to his first act.
All right, let's get into Act 1, the athlete. We're talking about a story of just raw power, incredible persistence, and, that immense pressure of performing when the whole world is watching.
Groth's career was a real marathon, not a sprint. He turned pro way back in 2006 and spent years just grinding it out on the tour. It's a tough life. But by 2014, all that hard work started to pay off. He finally broke into the top 100 and got to do something really special, representing Australia in huge events like the Davis Cup and even the Olympics.
So 2015, that was really his year. He hit his peak. In singles, he climbed all the way to number 53 in the world, and in doubles, he got even higher, number 24. That made him a really formidable player on the tour. I mean, he reached the third round of both the Australian Open and Wimbledon. That's big time. And just to give you a sense of the level he was playing at, get this. He found himself standing across the net from the legend himself, Roger Federer, at the US Open. Now, okay, he lost the match, but just sharing that stage with an icon like Federer, that tells you everything you need to know about where he stood in the world of tennis. But, every athlete's career has to end at some point. For Groth, though, it wasn't really an ending. It was a pivot. A really dramatic one, too. Swapping the tennis court for the campaign trail. This timeline just shows you how fast everything happened. He retires in 2018, does some media work, pretty standard stuff. But then, the real surprise. February 2022, he jumps into politics. And by November of that same year, he's an elected official. I mean, talk about a rapid transformation. That's just stunning. So, you're probably wondering, how does a tennis player just jump into politics like that? Well, his first big step was winning his party's pre-selection. That's basically an internal vote to pick who gets to run. And he didn't just squeak by. He won it decisively with 74 votes. First political hurdle? Cleared. But what made him want to do it? What was the motivation? Well, he said publicly that a big part of it was his frustration with the COVID lockdowns in his home state of Victoria. And that feeling, it clearly resonated with a lot of people, enough to launch this whole new second career for him.
And that brings us to Act 2, the politician. And look, if you thought his rise in tennis was fast, his ascent in politics was, well, it was meteoric. But as he was about to find out, it was not going to be a smooth ride at all. So check out this number from election night. In the 2022 Victorian election, Groth won his seat with a 7.1% swing in his favor. Now, in politics, that's a huge shift. It really proved he had this strong appeal in the community. And once he was in Parliament, man, things moved fast. He was immediately appointed to the Shadow Cabinet, which is basically the opposition's senior team. Then, just 2 years later, he was elected deputy leader of his whole party. For a political newcomer, that kind of rise is, well, it's just meteoric.
But as you can imagine, with that kind of high-profile job comes some really intense scrutiny. His second career, just like his first one, was lived completely in the public eye. And that brought on a whole new and much more complex set of challenges.
And here's a perfect example of that pressure. A newspaper came out with a story, making some pretty serious allegations about his conduct at a fundraiser. Groth flat out denied the claims, and the whole thing actually escalated into a defamation lawsuit. It just goes to show how harsh that political spotlight can be.
All this intense pressure, it ultimately led to the final and really abrupt chapter of his political story, the exit. And yeah, just as quickly as he'd risen through the ranks, he decided to walk away. And his resignation statement was pretty revealing.
He talked about the heavy toll all the public pressure was taking on his family, but then there was this one line that really stood out. He said that some of that pressure was actually coming from inside his own party. Wow.
And the end came so fast. In just a few weeks and early 2026, it was like a domino effect. He announced he wasn't going to run again, he was replaced as deputy leader, and then he resigned from parliament completely. And that was it. The end of a very short but incredibly eventful political career.
So after all that, what do we make of this pretty remarkable story? It's a tale of incredible ambition, for sure. I mean, to succeed in two completely different arenas like that is so rare. But it really brings up a big question for us today, doesn't it? In this age of intense, constant scrutiny, what does Sam Groth's journey really tell us about the true price of living a public life?